Good evening and welcome to Dark Hour Paranormal. I am your host tonight, Michael Roser, and tonight's show is going to be absolutely fantastic as I have with me two very experienced experiencers. I know some of you are a little on the fence about that word, but with the plethora of different anomalies and occurrences happening in certain people's lives, we don't yet have an umbrella statement other than that in the way of describing and trying to communicate and convey some of these experiences that people have had. And tonight, folks, I had with me Chad and Alta to discuss their experiences in the French Quarter and their book. Well, there's two of them, actually, but I was privileged to read one of them, and I was absolutely blown away. I'll be honest with you here, folks. It's an incredible journey, and the story that they can give to us together, okay, because this is something very intimately tied in with the both of them, wherein most of us will have our individual experiences and personal occurrences. This is something that Chad and Alta have experienced along their path together, as well as separately. So this is interesting, and I can't wait to have these folks on there. Very, very enjoyable, lighthearted, intellectual folks, and that's what we like here on Dark Hour Paranormal. So before we get going, I'm going to read a very quick bio that I want to give a shout out to Conflict Radio. Please go and check out his channel. He did an interview with Alta and Chad. It was this past week. It wasn't very long ago, and it was an excellent interview. Great introduction to their story with lots and lots of detail wrapped into the folds. So please go and check out Conflict Radio. I did lift this bio directly from him, and I want to thank him for sharing it with me so that I could make this a little bit of an easier setup today. So thank you very much, Conflict Radio. Now, to get to Chad and Alta, in the beginning, fresh from the encounter with an unexplained and deeply disturbing disruption of the known, Alta and Chad Dillard say they simply chose not to talk about it. Eventually, the cat was out of the bag, and they documented their experience in a book. They sent a timeline loaded with numerous fantastic encounters in a book in literature form in an effort to bring context to content and maybe, just maybe, make sense of the whole thing. The story has some interesting vantage points for everyone. UFOs, time shifting, unexplained encounters, and missing persons, along with missing time, regression, and recollection. So I'll just add that on the end there. Again, this is a very all-encompassing story that cannot necessarily be viewed as one experience. It must be seen in its totality. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy this show tonight. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Chad and Alta Dillard. Guys, how are you tonight? Thank you very much for joining us here.
We are wonderful, and what an intro, man. You make us sound so interesting.
We pray we can keep up the good work. Hi, Michael. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure, both of you, to be here tonight. I mean, we've talked in our own private conversations, and I was very intrigued when you reached out to me some time ago. Maybe it was a month or so, and you gave me a little bit of time after you sent me this book, which I'm going to introduce in just a moment before we get going, that essentially outlines and encompasses all your experiences up to a certain point. It's my understanding you have a second book as well. Is that correct?
No, we don't, but that's a wonderful thought.
Okay, I apologize. For some reason, I thought you might had.
We like wishful thinking because the experiences are ongoing, so you just never know.
Well, if that's the case, there very well may be a second part to this later on down the road. But just to introduce this book, this is called Orbducted in the French Quarter, and it is a very nice, comprehensive novel on Alta and Chad's experiences together and separately, and all those who were involved. It wasn't just them in some of these experiences. Very interesting read. Lots of pictures to kind of look through and back up some of the content. Fantastic work, guys. If you get the chance, please go and pick this up. I will provide the link in the description at the end of the show so that you may do this. It's very much worth checking out. Now, that being said, you folks are just regular people like myself and the guy I live with, having these interesting experiences. Now, in talking to you and starting to get into your book a little bit, I realized that synchronicity, the way that we would define it, is really something very prevalent in your story. And, the how do I want to put this? The different threads that really braid together to create, again, this bigger picture. So I know that you were on Conflict Radio, and again, I encourage people to go and check out that interview. A lot of preliminary stuff to build up into the story that eventually unfolds. But where would you guys like to start tonight in respect to your experiences and what you would like to talk about? Do you want to start at the beginning? Do you want to start at a specific experience? I have questions for you, but I'm just seeing where you guys may want to take this if you have a direction.
It's so totally up to you. Usually Alta kind of starts this out with, we can start where we just met, or we can go into some of our childhood memories.
It really, we're so, there's so much, and we love it being framed by you as to where your interest is, or where you think your audience might be interested. That's we're so ready for whichever direction you'd like us to take this in.
Well, I appreciate that. It's always nice to have a guest that's nice and flexible, and seems like you guys are ready to talk. So here, let's do this. Alta, if I could ask you to give us, I know this is really a monumental task considering, if you could give us kind of a quick run through of the timeline from where the book begins, where you guys first met, okay? Because I want people to understand that synchronicity, because I believe that there is a lot of importance and significance behind your connection, especially initially, to where we are towards the end of the book. And we'll start there, because a lot of the questions that I have, if you could just outline that when I bring them to you, it would be in context, I think, a little bit better.
Awesome. So I'll just say as quickly as I can that I'm 10 years older than Chad. I have a tremendous amount of mystery in my history in terms of my early childhood. In fact, I don't have any childhood memories until I'm about the age of 9. Around the age of 9, my first memory hits, and it's, as I've often said, it's acute. It's very specific. That memory is me being tested for what they called ESP. I happened to be in a military hospital. I've always been hesitant about that portion of the story because people immediately start, I found, probably for good reason, to start automatically feeling that I'm some kind of a military project or what have you. I just suggest I have no idea about anything. I'm only offering what I do know, and it's very little.
Can I ask you something very quickly, Alta?
Sure.
Because this is where you're starting. And again, I think this is very important to understand. Now, we're going to get into the experiences that you both have had in respect to being abducted. This is something I'd like to throw out there for those who may have the question later on. Do you think that the majority, or maybe some of your experiences that you had, were actually guided perhaps by some of those black projects wherein they're able to present themselves in a certain way because maybe they have technology to do that? Where that's garnered from is another story altogether. Or do you believe that what you've experienced is entirely extraterrestrial with no sort of human influence in there at all?
I would suggest that all of that sounds amazing to me, and I have no answer.
Okay.
People get very frustrated with me because I cannot answer that.
That's okay.
I offer what I know, and I offer what I don't know. And the in between, I'm pretty avoiding, because it's just, I've had such a, as I said, early life of no answers and and there's no memories. There's no baby pictures of me. My childhood pictures don't start till I'm 2. And then there's too many of them to the point where now I don't allow photos at all, or, which is a very interesting time to be moving about in this life with video and so on. But just to kind of get it away from me, but that's the beginnings. And then I'm raised predominantly only by a mother. I had a stepfather until I'm 15. He died from cancer. And then, as I said, pretty predominantly raised by a very powerful mother. And what I mean by that, like a mama bear, I'm told I'm mixed native from a reservation area of Arizona originally. I'm raised in the native culture with all of my regalia. I'm not raised of the people. My mother she seemed to be on the move a lot when I was little. And then she settled in my first memory at 9, as I said. And then I go to sleep again. I don't have any memory of leaving. That ESP testing took place in Aurora, Colorado, in a military hospital that is still an existing establishment called Fitzsimmons Hospital.
Hmm.
I've tried very hard to get information that doesn't exist. You cannot. And if anybody can help me, that's why I present this. So from that perspective, I'm about 9, and then I go to sleep again, and I don't wake back up really, and for a couple of years. I do not remember leaving Colorado. I don't remember any of that. Next thing I know, I'm somewhere, I don't know, 10-ish, 11-ish, 12-ish, somewhere in there, and I'm in Iowa, in the middle of the country. I am in Iowa. Now, I spent about 10 years in Iowa. It was a fabulous, I'm there in the 70s, fabulous place to be raised. I just have to say that. It's a lot going for that part of the world in that period of time. Then all of a sudden, I'm in my first year of college. This would be the mid 70s. And my mom decides she's going to move to Arkansas. I didn't even really, and I say this lovingly, I didn't really even know an Arkansas existed. I didn't know anything about the South. I say it very lovingly, but I mean naive. I'm so naive. So next thing I know, we moved to Arkansas. Mom gets very involved in the community of Little Rock. This is the 70s. She then, as I said, she's a self-made kind of woman, so on and so forth. I'm coming in and out of the state over the years. I'm leaving and then I'm coming back. I'm a mama's girl. I'd never married. I never have had children. Now, if I can, I'll fast forward us to 1990. It happens to be Valentine's. I have returned to Arkansas. I've been gone for a few years. I've returned. I'm staying with my mom. She has moved to another section of the city I'm not familiar with. And I've taken on a new job that I hate. I'm there the first week on this job. And when I say I hate it, I hate my life. I'm 33, never married, no kids, and not interested, I might add. And I hate my job. So it's Valentine's Day. This guy I worked with, his name David, decided he couldn't stand the idea that I didn't have a date for Valentine's. He's a young married guy with a new baby. He decides he's going to set me up on a blind date. I tell him immediately, I'm not interested. Never been on one, not interested. He doesn't let it go. He's ringing a phone. Next thing I know, he's having a conversation about me. I'm hearing myself being described and I'm thinking I'm sounding interesting, maybe not such a bad idea. Well, the response from the person he's talking to is he wants the date, but he can't make the date because he's got to work that night. Okay. Well, fast forward. Now, I'm not a happy girl. I don't want a blind date. I can't get a blind date. I'm just in a big old befuddle. I leave work that day. I go home. I change my clothes. I decide I'm going to go out and have a drink. That's very unusual behavior. It's the only reason I'm giving you these details. Very unusual. I don't drink and drive. I like to drink, but I don't drink and drive. I'm never alone. I'm very social, and I don't ever remember going someplace alone before. On this particular night, I just knew I needed to go somewhere and have a drink. There's a lot to the story. It would take way too much time. Chad's trying to encourage me to tell you this part. I'll just say this part of this. There is no doubt to me that there were beings involved, beings that represented in the form of males, men, that were used to make sure that I got from one place to another before that night was over, for the purpose of what I now and soon that night found out. I call it the arrangement of Chad. The arrangement. So there's a lot to that. I use the word high strangeness for everything. I borrowed that term a million years ago, and I've used it for everything that is weird, unusual, paranormal. Tremendous high strangeness involved in getting me from point A to point B. Now we'll get to point B, Valentine's night. I am a very unhappy girl. As the night is wearing on, I'm just not doing well. I went to a sports bar I'd never been to before. That's where I ended up with the help of what I'm convinced are these beings that help get me there. Before midnight on Valentine's, I'm sitting up at the bar by myself. I had disconnected from these men and got all by myself, and I'm just falling in my mood. It's getting worse. Next thing I know, I'm looking down at the floor this way I remember it, and I'm seeing feet standing right at my gaze. Tennis shoes. Yeah. And they weren't very nice looking. They were kind of worn, and somebody worked hard. And this very sweet voice asked me if I wanted to play pinball. I remember coming up his body with my eyes, and I'm not nice. And I was not in a good mood, which is really weird for me also, because I'm very social. Well, I'm about to tell him off because I hate pinball. But, by the time I got to the face, it was sweet, it was adorable. And I'm like, yeah, let's go play pinball. So we go over to the pinball machine, and I'll have Chad pick it up from there.
Yeah, I like Alta said, a friend of mine, David, called me that day, and he's like, "Hey, I've got this girl I want you to meet." And I tell him I got to work, so I end up at this sports bar with my friends from work because we were all guys, and of
Chad
course
worked
we
in
had
an
to
oyster
work.
bar that
We
night.
worked in an oyster bar, fish, so
Mhm.
I, so we end up at this sports bar to play, all of us to play darts. Well, it's weird because I didn't hang with my friends. I went to the opposite side of the sports bar and played pinball by myself.
Mhm.
And then
And Chad had never been here before
yeah,
either.
this was a
His
place I had never
uh-huh.
been.
His first go around.
And I see this young lady sitting at the bar, and I go over and I'm like, "Would you like to play pinball?" And she kind of looked at me funny, but she said, "Yeah." And we went over and we were playing pinball. We played a game of pinball, and she goes, "Well, what's your name?" And I said, "Chad." She goes, "Do you know a guy named David?" I'm like, "Yeah." "Did he call you today?" I'm like, "Yeah." "I'm Alta. I'm the one that you were supposed to have the blind date with."
Unreal.
So it's yeah. So essentially, we were a blind date that didn't happen, that happened anyway.
And if we could fast forward the story again, we'll just move through this. But the real catcher for Alta,
Yeah.
besides all of what we just described to you and all the details I wasn't able to share again due to time, we found out within 24 hours that Chad's grandfather, who had died before I came into the picture, the world knew him as George. Chad knew him as Papa. And the reality is George was a name that this man made up. He created the name for himself because his real name is Alta.
See, that's the interesting thing about your story. And, I know people might be sitting there saying, well, why are they talking about the? Well, I mean, this is sort of a textbook example of what people call meeting by fate. Now, many of us have experienced that to some degree in our lives, but it was a very significant moment for you in sort of the beginning, the jump off point of perhaps noticing those synchronicities between yourselves and the families that you both have shared. I mean, that's where the stretch starts coming out, when the synchronicities leave you guys and actually extend to other people in your immediate or extended circles. Really, really curious.
And the grandfather's first name is Alta, and the last name is Duncan, and that's my mother's name. Now, I understand that I am mixed Indian out of the Southwest, with no Arkansas in my bloodline that we know of. We understand Chad's a little white guy out of Arkansas, raised Southern Baptist with no Indian in his bloodline. And, all of a sudden now we got this huge, whatever one wants to call this. So moving the story along, I'll say again, kind of keeping it rolling, I was mortified internally. As soon as it was said to me, as soon as Chad told me, I was mortified. I was terrified inside. And again, that confuses people. But when you've lived a life of mystery, at that very moment, I had an understanding that something was in control that I didn't understand. And I
Hmm.
didn't like it because it was invisible. I couldn't understand it, whatever. So I disappeared, essentially, not poof, but I got gone. I let Chad, I led him on to think everything was great. I was so happy we'd met. Couldn't wait to see him again. Life was going to get on with it. Well, no, not inside of me. I'm the runner. I was going to run internally. So for 3 months, Chad couldn't find me. Now he didn't try for 3 months, but he certainly did try in the beginning, and it was not to be found. So 3 months into the situation, I had like this weird signal go off inside of me. There's no other way to describe it. It wasn't like I was hearing voices, but it was like I had to find Chad. I had to find him. So I found him, and we got reunited. Again, a lot to the story. We love our little book, but it has, most of that book has been edited out of our story. So
Mm.
much of what has happened to us, the publisher chose to edit out, I guess for the purpose of keeping it around that corner that we wrote about with the abduction. So there's just so much to this. So
Hmm.
we got reunited 3 months later and just kind of made up our mind, okay, that's it. We're gonna work this out and get on with life. So that's in 1990. A year later, we married. Now we will fast forward to 1990, the end of 94 and 90, actually 1994, and then the beginning of 95. So 1994, Chad and I were invited by my mom. She had chose to leave Little Rock and moved to Louisiana. She had been invited. She was retired. She had a degree in law. Bill Clinton had been my mother's first law professor back in the 70s. And so when I said she was a powerful self made woman, I meant that. She had been invited to come and live on a person's private property who had several, most would call them teepees. I've always called them lodges. He
Hmm.
had a buffalo, he had a petting ranch, a petting zoo, and
Like
educational,
a fake or like a little
fake front saloons and
saloon
jail,
and
like the old
jail and
West.
yeah, like an old West kind of thing.
So this guy was setting up this amazing setup to bus children in for educational purposes and fun and so on. Mom was going to come there to be like the local native elder and teach because she was an educator. So she knew a lot of our crafts and so on. So that was the idea. She let us know that she was going there. Did we want to join? We jumped on board. We said absolutely. So mom and I wear the same regalia. We are almost in identical regalia. I look very much like my mom. I've grown into her essentially. So we moved to Louisiana. That would have been 94. Things didn't work out there. Mom decides she's not staying. She's going to move back to Arkansas. Chad and I decided to stay. Now we had moved off of the property into we were living in a mobile home actually, kind of out in the boondock. We were in the
We were in a
swamps.
swamp.
It was the
Hmm.
swamps. And swamps were something very unusual to both him and I. This particular evening, it seems like it was a Friday night. We're going to go into town, the local town. That town was called Hammond, Louisiana. There's a small university there. It's growing kind of in leaps and bounds now, but I thought of it as, small town. We're going to go there on a Friday night and have drinks and supper. So before the sun sets, it's still light out. Chad's driving, I'm passenger. We're driving into town and it's busy. Friday night traffic. And Chad, you'll pick it up.
So we're coming into town, and the way that the road goes and all, it kind of makes this like little S in the road or a little curve in the road, and like the local Walmart shopping centers
Supersized
there,
Walmart.
supersized
Mhm.
Walmart, and
Size wise.
and then the strip mall and everything, and it's right, kind of right there in that turn, and as we're coming up, there's like these tall pines that are there also. We come around and we get past the pines and we look up, and there is this craft in the sky, and it's huge. I mean, like probably bigger than a battleship, kind of huge, kind of, or
It was bigger
aircraft
than the
carrier.
supersized Walmart parking
Yeah.
lot and all the surrounding area. And it took up the sky, and it was so huge that I turned my head instantly away from it because it was too big for me to comprehend. I'd never been through anything like that. Chad had to keep looking because he had to drive, of course, but it was that big.
Is this the first time that either of you were witness to something identified like this in the sky, or had you had any prior experiences individually earlier in life?
Never. I never. Now,
Neither one of
Alta,
us had ever
at 6.
in adult form or growing up, but my mother claims that when I was 6 months old, which would have been in the late 50s, she claims she was driving across the desert and that it was daylight, and that a small UFO metallic craft came out of the sky and stopped her on the road while she was driving. As I interject that message, I want everyone to hear, if they're kind enough to listen to us. I had no interest in this subject at all. I thought my mother was nuts. And anytime, the few times she ever cared to share that information, which was not often, she was very guarded because she had a lot of mystery in her life. Nobody would challenge her. And I certainly didn't. As I've always said, I crawled away like in total embarrassment, just convinced she's nuts. So the subject was never broached. I have no answers other than what I shared with you. So this was our first experience of recognition, Chad and I, this time in Hammond.
Our
Very interesting.
Our brain exploded.
Yeah,
I mean,
it exploded.
because we're looking at this, and it's
somewhat the way Chad describes, because I couldn't look. I just stared at him.
She
praying
looked at
that
it, and
he
then,
was
like,
going to tell me there's nothing going on. I went into shock.
You're not seeing what I'm seeing.
I didn't know what shock was, right? So I'm experiencing shock just staring at him. And so Chad has described this as somewhat trapezoid.
Trapezoid, yeah.
But ginormous.
Like it's
trapezoid.
Like the TR-3B.
Yeah, it was very, very dark, very black. Seemed like it was very smooth kind of edges, or very cut, chiseled. And it, like I said, it was huge, very dark. There was a couple of lights in the front, 2 or 3, 4 lights in the back, moving very, very slowly.
If it's moving
if
at
it
all.
was moving at all.
And no sound.
No sound.
Right.
We didn't see like people reacting, out on the road with us. Nobody pulling over. Nobody.
Right. And there was a lot of traffic.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of set at a red light for a second.
I mean, it feels like it was for us.
Looking at it, or I was looking at it. Alta's looking at me like,
right.
please tell me I didn't see what
laughing,
I saw.
but I wasn't laughing.
Yeah.
I was
no, neither one.
Frozen solid.
Well, shocked me silent, which takes a lot.
Right.
I mean, I went silent. So
you saw, yep, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just moving through that, was just going to express. Go ahead, Chad, you were going to say.
We got on through the light. We went on. We went had our meal.
Never spoke about it. We were never going to speak about it. That was going to be a non-event.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Nope, that didn't happen.
That didn't happen.
Right. The weirdest of reaction.
And as I was looking at it, I kind of focused back off of it, and I'm like, okay, if I don't acknowledge it, if I don't let them know that I seen them, they won't know. Or it was kind of like,
if I don't acknowledge it, they won't see us.
Yeah, they won't see us.
Is that some bizarre thinking?
They won't see us.
It's a survivalist technique, I think.
Yeah. It was like, okay, I didn't see that. No.
So honest.
Yeah.
So we didn't have the luxury of even though we didn't discuss it that night, it was going to be a non-event the next day.
Right.
We either in the newspaper, but I always felt fairly sure that it was on the radio. Like you turn on the radio in your car back in the old, back in the day. It had been announced that others had seen this because they called it in, that there was this unidentified
UFO.
Yeah, whatever the language was, made it
Right.
real clear to him. And I think I must have yanked that radio out of the dashboard. It was like I couldn't get the thing shut off. I mean, it was like, so we went right back into our behavior of non-event. Even though we heard it, it was like, no, we didn't. Oh, no, we didn't.
Denial.
Oh,
Right.
man. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
And if that would have probably been our only event,
Oh,
we wouldn't be
Yeah.
talking today. Yeah, we wouldn't be talking about.
Right. So when we're talking, okay, so you had this initial experience with the UFO again together, which is again very interesting. I'm not sure where on the timeline we are, but I want to kind of move forward a little bit because I want to get to some of the more intricate questions that sort of revolve around your content. Can you talk a little bit about that night that Chad, you were there, Alta, as well as Christine, and the abduction experience that ensued? And you don't have to necessarily go into the regression part yet. We can get there, but just what you interpreted at the time that this happened.
So it is, Chad's asking me to kind of frame this because he had the regression, and so he'll be able to express that to you. What I experienced was recollection. So I'm the only one that would seem out of the three.
97, right?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah, we're moving into 97 now.
So
moved into the French Quarter.
Right, we've moved to the French Quarter. We've had a whole crazy life prior to this. We moved to the quarter in 95. So within that 2 years' times, we've experienced unbelievable stuff. And then on this particular evening, Christine happened to be a woman that I worked with in a shop there in the French Quarter. Chad was an entrepreneur. He did his own thing, made his own schedule. So this happened to be an evening that the three of us decided to go out and have dinner and drinks. We've never done it before, the three of us. At the time, prospectively, Christine's 24, Chad's 30. I've just turned 40. I'm the old chick of the bunch. Christine had never had children and had never been married. We start off, the objective is we're going to be very spontaneous this night. So we're walking. Everybody walks when you live in the French Quarter. I will mention this. It's important to the story. Christine didn't live in the quarter. Chad and I only lived a couple blocks from our shop in the quarter. We had a car, but we paid to keep it in parking. Christine had a car and lived across the river. The way to get to work in the quarter is you either drove, you took a cab, whatever, or you took the ferry back and forth. On that particular morning, Christine drove to work. That's important to the story. She parked her car up the street from our shop. We decide we're going to make the spontaneous night. We start, French Quarter is about 13 blocks square. We're going to start on Bourbon and just work our way across. The minute we step out of the shop, it's about 9:30 at night. She's locking the door. She's the manager of the shop. I remember instantly making note of how weird the energy felt. I didn't go around normally talking like that. I did do it that night. And I remember that they both acknowledged the same thing, which we just don't go around talking like that. But it was weird. And so we hit Bourbon Street, our first stop, which is only a couple blocks from the shop. And right from the jump, something's off. Besides the energy of the air, there's no people. And if anybody knows the French Quarter, framing that, it's a 24/7 party up until this last year. 24/7, it never dies, it never stops. There's no people. There are a few stragglers, but there are no people. And I remember saying, where is everybody? Where is everybody? Because we're out to have a party. Okay. I'll have Chad pick this up now. We go to the first stop we make is a place that Chad had worked at when we first moved there in 95, 2 years prior. It's a big, like 3-story, the things you see on television about the French Quarter club. Downstairs, it's got a courtyard restaurant. It's got a bar right off the street, like a breezeway. And then you go up this beautiful winding wood thing stairwell to a disco with the balconies and all of that. So it's big. We knew everybody there. We knew the owners and the wait staff, the managers, and so on. So Chad, if you'll.
Yeah, we go in and there's nobody there. It's just the manager.
Oh, weird.
Out of the whole place.
Now,
there's no wait staff.
Very
There's
strange.
Nobody. There's nobody.
There's no live music. They always had live music, always. And we go in. The manager, he reminds us that he was a Mardi Gras Indian. And we go up and we look at his regalia. Again, there's nobody there. We're looking for
this part that Chad's interjecting is very weird to the whole story as well. We've known him for years and we never knew he was a Mardi Gras Indian. I'm mixed Indian and everybody knew it. And he'd met my mother who had died prior to this experience. So that part of it is just as bizarre as all the rest of it. That the only person in that place is this manager, this little black guy, who we'd known forever and never knew that about him.
And this was a place that I used to work at, and I had ghost experiences there.
Interesting.
Yeah, very crazy experiences there.
So we decide relatively quickly,
right?
There ain't nothing happening here. We're going to just mosey on down the road. Yeah. He made us all a house drink. None of us remember ever drinking, because all we wanted to do was be around people and music.
Right.
That wasn't happening.
Yeah, you want to celebrate.
Yeah. We're just trying to have a party.
We're going to be out.
Get festive.
Right.
Right.
We were trying to be so festive. We don't even remember. There weren't even musicians out on the street. That's the French Quarter. Again.
That's crazy.
Yeah, right. There was none of that happening. None of that was happening. Okay, so we leave that place, speed along. We stop at another place, kind of in the center of the quarter. I don't ever remember being there before. Chad, I don't know. Had you ever been there?
Maybe once or twice.
So I don't ever remember this place. We got there, and once again, doors open. I remember us walking in, the three of us sitting down in a booth, looking around, and what do you think? There's nobody there, except what would appear to be a bartender. We don't even stick around. We just say, okay, well, we're just gonna, this is just nuts. Now, nobody's thinking that I know of anything paranormal or whatever. This is just freaking weird. Okay, so we leave that place. Now we hit the end of the quarter and we go to a place that has never let us down. It's a homey place. So downstairs is a Thai restaurant. You go up a rickety stairwell to the place above called Dragon's Den. So the Dragon's Den it feels like a little opium kind of bar. I haven't done opium, but that stuff you see on TV.
It looks
it just looks like
black walls.
You got all the red stuff, the pillows on the floor and long black curtains.
That's what I'm picturing. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Mirrors,
exactly.
15 foot walls with mirrors.
A teeny tiny balcony that everybody crams out on and break between the live music. We knew the musicians. This was a place, we didn't spend a lot of time in the bars because we worked hard. But when we did, this would be the place we'd go. Okay, with that said,
especially Monday night sake night.
So not on this night. On this night, the three of us up those stairs we go. And by the time we get to the top, we see the door is shut and there's a sign. They want a cover charge. What? We've been a few years, home sweet home. We've never been through none of that. There's never been that before. So pissy we become. Yeah. And we just pivot on the stairs and pissy down the stairs.
And cheap we're not. We tip the band.
That's very nice of you. Those musicians probably really appreciated that. Yeah. But considering what was going to happen next, it's not like you needed the money. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, so I mean, I'm looking towards this experience where you guys were out on the corner and you saw. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Nope, we're there. So we're there on that corner because our last of this evening, as we're pissy down the stairs, we come out, we decide, okay, one more shot because it's within our walking view. We only have to take a few feet across this little street at our last location, and that's called Checkpoint Charlie's. Checkpoint Charlie's sits right on the corner. It's a huge, well, not huge, it's a big dive. I mean, it's a dive. It's like a biker dive. But it's where all the locals hang. And it's fun. And it's also where all the famous, when they get done doing their gigs, they charge you a lot of money for. This is the dive they hang out in to play for free. So you never know who you're going to be partying with and drinking with. So it's always fun. Well, wouldn't you know, on this night, now keep in mind what I told you, these details I throw in, just kind of painting that picture. Jacqueline is 24 at the time. She's tall, slender, long blonde hair, looks like a beach babe. We're walking across the street. All of a sudden, they got, for the first time ever that we know of, a doorman standing outside of Checkpoint Charlie's. Now I'm like, we're only a few feet away as we're walking towards him. I'm like, what? Now this little doorman looked like Nirvana dude, like Kurt Cobain. Right. Right. He's not very big. He's adorable. And he looks about the age of our friend. When you use that word synchronicity, he's a happy little guy. Well, I just blow past him because the door is wide open. I'm like, somebody surprised me. This place never had a doorman. And certainly, what could he do? He's teeny. I'm bigger than he is. And as I said, I blow past him. And wouldn't you know, this particular night, there's nobody in there. I didn't even see a bartender in this place. Okay. Now we're at that corner. Now I walk away from girlfriend and doorman. They're friendly and chatting it up and they're looking happy. And at least I'm happy for her. And all's not lost. I go, there's a stoop, whatever, half block up. I go and just head for it to go sit on it, grumping. And Chad follows me, and I say to Chad, I'm just so over this. I just want to call a cab and I don't even want to walk the blocks home. I just want to go home. Now I'm starting to feel like Dorothy and Oz. I just want to go home, Chad. And next thing I know, that's the last thing we know. It's 11 o'clock. All three of us remember around 11 o'clock is the last thing the three of us know. The next thing I know, I'm sitting straight up. It's the next day, somewhere between 8 and 9 in the morning. The sun is blasting through my window, and I'm sitting straight up Indian style on my day bed in my living room. She is missing. She's not there. I don't even know if Chad's there, because at that point it's very important for me to keep expressing. I don't know why, but I didn't wake up. I came to. And it's just such a huge difference. My eyes popped open. I was rubbing my arms. I felt instantly something in my upper arm that was not there the night before.
She's sitting in Indian style.
And I'm sitting up Indian style, in my living room. Oh, yeah.
Not usually how people sleep.
Not that I'm aware of, not in my case. So anyhow, that's that part of it. Now, again, out of the three of us, I'm the only one that seems to have had this experience. I like to use the word returned with memory. My memory's in the middle. Nothing about coming off the street, nothing about being returned home. Now, we have an account about our friend that is pretty mind-blowing. It's very different than anything Chad experienced or what I remember. We all three had very different experiences. If I might, before Chad shares, because he had to finally, well, he didn't have to. I sort of rounded it up, and he was an agreeable sort, got regression done several years later. And so he has an account through the regression of what sounds like definitely happened to him, maybe her, we don't know, and definitely not me. I'm not in any of his account. And in my memory, he and she are not in my experience. So all very individualized. Now, in her case, if I might, real quick, because she won't go public, we're still connected 20 years later. Is it 20, whatever it is, 22 now or something. We're still connected, but she'd always made it clear that she would not go public. So she's given us permission to speak on her behalf. And her story, and she's sticking with it, or she's never denied it. She has never changed us when we've interviewed. She claims that sometime before that night happened to the three of us, she was breaking up with a boyfriend. His name is Will. I call him Dark Boy. He was her polar opposite. As I describe her, tall, slender, blonde. He was adorable like she is, but he had long black hair, and he had a darkness about him. She didn't date him very long. when she decided that she wanted to see other people, and she's very loving, she's a very considerate soul. She decided she was going to invite him over to her place, daylight, afternoon. It's broad daylight. They're standing out on her porch. She's giving him the I like your butt kind of story. I'm sort of paraphrasing that. And she claims, and I guarantee you, there's no doubt to me she's telling the truth. She says that he turned into a wolf. A wolf. The
Shape-shifting.
He absolutely, right in front of her face. She turned her head away in shock. I knew when she said that exactly what she meant, because that's what I did when I saw that floating something city in, you know, the first time with Chad, when I turned my head away. So she turns her head away. And now they're only inches apart. She's a very affectionate person, you know, and especially if she cares about you. So they're, you know, she was feeling terrible about breaking up with him. But so the point is they're, you know, like nose to nose, very close. He shifted, she turned her head. When she looked back, he'd shifted back human and shifted a second time. When he did it the second time, her words, and I'll clean up the language, she said in a very determined, direct voice, "You just turned into an effing wolf." She said his response was startled. "You saw that." What? Okay, now she shares this with me. I don't think she's telling nobody else back in the day. And the only thing I'm presuming she shared with me for is because I'm mixed Indian. And it just kind of goes with the territory. I don't ever remember seeing nobody shifting into a wolf, but you know, I don't have childhood memories. Who knows? So this happens right before that night of what we call Orbduction. There's a reason for that word. We created the word. Actually, our publisher came up with that word, and I just jumped on it. And so, you know, we have created this word very specifically due to what came out in that regression. So this happens to her just before the three of us. Now, finishing her story up, the next thing she knows that night, it's 11 o'clock on the corner with the two of us. The next thing she knows, it's somewhere between 3 and 4 in the morning. Now, everything in between that's gone. She's now behind the steering wheel of her moving car. It's moving very slowly. It hits a parked car and knocks off her rear view mirror. She says this is what jolted her too. The other part of that insane story is she's someplace else in the city from where she parked the car that morning, up the street from our shop. There's a whole lot more to that story, but I know the interest is, and we're thrilled that you have interest in us at all. There's a lot more to the story that follows her coming to, if you will, winding up that night. Now, this all, again, is taking place relatively weeks or what have you prior to the three of us being taken. As I said to you, I have memory of in between. But Chad has had regression where his is real involved. So where would you like to go, Michael?
Let's start with your account of whatever you can remember, Alta, and then we'll move into Chad's experience with the regression, because that is incredibly profound and very detailed in the way of what he may have gone through.
Absolutely.
Well, absolutely. But Alta's is also, and she doesn't share it as much as I do mine, but hers is pretty amazing in itself.
And thank you for the opportunity, because I didn't share it the
right,
last time on conflict. So thank you for this.
My pleasure.
It is so, as you know, again, the word profound for me. So, okay, memory is sitting on that stoop. I want to go home. Next thing I know, I'm standing on a crater. It's a huge crater. It looks very deep. And I'm looking over, I'm standing on the edge of a crater. And I'm looking down in it. And at the base of the crater is a metallic structure, rectangular shaped. There's no movement. There's nothing alive down there that I'm aware of. Now, everything is happening very fast. So as I'm studying that, next thing as my gaze comes upward, I'm now my eyes are upward where I'm now looking around me. The crater has lights all around the perimeter of it. Those lights are like oblong shape, not real big, as they used to say, bigger than a bread box. And man, am I aging myself. But they're like these orbs of light all around this crater. In the beginning, I was so confused as I tried to recall this. But as time has worn and I've had all this time of having this story, this experience wear on me, I just feel very strongly what I say to you is that those lights felt alive. They feel
Mm-hmm.
alive or almost organic. They felt alive. Okay. So the next thing I know, as I'm like getting really into this, and I'm feeling myself like interested and inquisitive, and I'm starting to feel almost kind of childlike. There's no fear. I don't have any sense of fear or anything. Before I can start, really thinking more about what are these lights, what's this crater, and what's down there, I'm aware there's something behind me. So I don't completely turn around, I pivot sort of around. And what I see is several feet behind me, what appear to be human looking people of different ages, not a lot of them, three or four maybe. And they are what is bizarre. Everybody's dressed. I don't see any distress. They all seem to be almost catatonic or suspended. Animation, I think, might be the, you know, better word. But what's even stranger is they seem to be on a dog pile, like a dog pile, if you
Mm-hmm.
understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, it was a very interesting and a sort of poignant thought when I was reading the book and you described it as such.
It is so bizarre. And my normal behavior is I want to help you too much. So I sometimes I can get in the way because I want to help too much. So my normal behavior would be to move towards them to try to help, like whatever. But before I could make that move, I just remember the consciousness saying that you need to go help or get closer. Before I could do anything, I pivot back because I'm aware now that there is a being standing right next to me on the edge of that crater.
And
And I'll
you're in your
describe,
body this whole time, or are you in some other form of consciousness?
I'm in my body.
Okay.
And she is also, she's in a body. So I refer to her as her. Now, I- I'll start stuttering because the connection with her is so huge that I've
Hmm.
never really been able to find proper words. She is, I didn't know until I'm having the experience that that was my idea of physical perfectness, physical beauty, where I don't know how to describe that. I had no idea until I was having that experience. She's tall. I'm about 5'5". She's, several inches taller than I am because I have to put my head back to look up at her. She is in it's starting to sound very typical now as I'm hearing lots of other folks come forward that are having experiences. She's in what would appear or what felt a bodysuit. It's perfectly fit. She has long blonde hair. I don't remember anything about blue eyes or anything like that. In fact, description of what I'm taking in around me, keeping in mind I'm standing on the edge of a crater, with the exception of those human looking folks behind me, dogpiled, everything else that I am surrounded in, it looks like I'm standing on the moon, on what people presume or profess to be films of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
It's black and white, it's gray and blonde. That's what I'm experiencing as far as color.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as I look up at her, I'm aware at this point she is perfection. She's she's perfection. And I become extremely childlike. I felt like I've said this before, if I had a tail, it was wagging off. I was so, as ridiculous as I sound, I was so happy. I had no thought about life here, Chad, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. No concept of any of that. I was so happy to be with her. whoever her was, I didn't care. I didn't need to ask her any questions. I didn't care. I was just as close to the word of bliss is what I was in the presence of. Then all of a sudden, as I'm falling into all of that emotion, my gaze goes above her. The sky looks like diamonds, that kind of classic. The stars look like diamonds.
Hmm.
So beautiful. I'm from the Southwest. Nothing more gorgeous, at times than a Southwestern, night when it's full of stars. So that's what I'm experiencing. I'm looking at this black sky with these beautiful stars. Well, then all of a sudden, one of them began to move. And when I say move, they were like doing a dance. They were dancing above my head. And the moment that the stars started to move, I became, the only word I know how to describe is terrified. I went from instant state of bliss to terror. Because if there is such a thing as logic, it kicked in and it was saying, stars don't do that. And whatever that trigger is, I shut down immediately. I
Hmm.
became so afraid that she spoke to me telepathically in the most, again, don't know how to describe these tones. I can't describe the tones. So beautiful. And that's how she spoke to me, in a tone that was in English. And she called me by name. And she said, and of course I cannot duplicate it, Alta, don't be afraid. They're just scanning you. Those were her words to me. And then at that very moment is when uh, is when my eyes popped open the next morning, and I was sitting up in my house rubbing my arm, and I had something in my upper arm. I used the word unknown. I've always refused the word implant, not to be combative, but I have no memory of it being implanted.
Hmm.
So I always try to, help folks kind of expand, as I've been forced to do, with just language. It's an unknown. I have no idea. It's just there. It's there. And I have another from another experience that happened years later. So yeah, that was my experience. And then of course, Chad's regression is a whole nother ballgame. I'd like to mention, when you do get to this point of hearing Chad's regression, take note. Uh, her was not ever described in Chad's experience. And
Very curious. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, and I was just going to say quickly without giving it away, because I love when Chad describes his experience. Uh, what I'm aware of is anything he describes, she wasn't with him either, and who he was with wasn't with me. So it's like we're just having such different experiences.
Very curious. We hear this quite often in different capacities, wherein somebody is standing next to someone else, both are looking at the same
Right.
object, having the same experience, and yet both of them actually have differing experiences in the way of recollection. Very odd how that may happen, or perhaps how our
Mm,
perceptions are manipulated to view what is desired.
mm,
Before we get to Chad's encounter here, let me ask you, Alta, because this is in the book, what the experience that you're mentioning with waking up and rubbing your arms and feeling something there. There was an experience that you went through very quickly after you had kind of come to. Can you describe the experience of removing what you considered to be an
mm,
implant or whatever it was, and the way that it
mm,
dissolved in front of your eyes? Because to
mm,
me, that sounds very interesting and not like any material that we have currently within our knowledge.
mm.
Before she answers, thank you for asking,
No,
because it
yeah,
does
Yes, of course.
doesn't get
Of course.
asked as much.
right. I ditto that. Thank you so much
You're
for
very
that
welcome.
interest. So, right. So, as I said, I come to, I'm rubbing my arm. I have visual into my bedroom from where I'm sitting in the living room, and I see a big lump in my bed. And I always say, this would have been the one time two lumps would have been so gladly appreciated, but I only see one. And
Hmm.
I'm praying that that lump belongs to me. But at that point, before I can get to the lump, because that's where I'm heading, because I'm in panic mode. I'm beyond panic. There's no way to describe the terror that I'm going through. The bathroom happens to be right there. So I just beeline straight to the bathroom, and I get a pair of tweezers, because what I'm feeling is I'm feeling a lump in my arm. like a large bug bite kind of lump. But there's something sticking out that feels like a sticker or a piece of cactus. And it's sharp. It's not very big, but it's sharp enough for every time I run my hand over it, I can feel it on my hand, my fingers. And what's real bizarre to me is there's no pain at all with it. No pain. Now, this thing is sticking in my arm and it doesn't hurt. It's just sharp, like getting my attention.
Mm-hmm.
So I run in the bathroom, I grab a pair of tweezers, and I pull this out. This that comes out, now what's in my arm that feels like a piece of sticker or a piece of cactus solid, when I pulled it out, it looks like a celery fiber, if you understand what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a bit translucent. It's what? This is solid in my arm, and I pulled it out, and it's like, what? And then I got it between my fingers. It's very tiny. I'm terrible about math, but I want to say like an eighth of an inch long.
Okay.
Throwing that
At
out
the
there.
most.
At the most. Thank you, Chad. And I got it between my fingers now, and it begins to dissolve. And it literally dissolved right in front of my eyes. I turn on the faucet, and as I've said, any chance I've been given, I scrub my hands till I thought they were going to bleed.
Mm-hmm.
And I say it honestly, I wanted that off of me. I wanted that gone. Well, so much for that, because it left a teeny tiny little pinhole and the lump is still there. So, okay. Now I'm beyond freaking out. I'm well past all that. I'm now hauling my not so tiny hiney just as fast as I can move towards Chad. At this point, the lump, thank God, is Chad. He's now surfaced out of the blankie. He's now upright. He's moving towards me. This is like a comedy of errors. You can just see this in a movie. And as we're moving towards each other, I'm in pure panic. He is confused. Well, that's not the look I wanted to see, because that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing Chad moving towards me with such a look on his face of confusion. And I'm thinking, oh no, oh no. And then I'm like, Chad, my arm, right? And I'm like, throwing my arm. He hadn't even hardly got his eyes open yet. But those eyes that I saw were very confused. And Chad, if you'll.
Yeah. I woke up and I'm like, what happened to us last night? I mean, this is not our first rodeo. We've been out and about, and we weren't drinking. We were looking for a place to. We've only been out an hour and a half, So I wake up very confused. I go to Alta, and I'm like, how did we get home? And that, So she goes, and I've got something in my arm. So she shows me her arm, and I get to looking, and she's got these handprints on both arms. There was only like 4 digits. They were like, kind of bruised.
Mm-hmm.
They went all the way around her arm. Very long. Like somebody was either there was 2, one on each side, or one behind her. I don't remember how the bruises actually are.
Mm-hmm.
But now they only lasted for like
a day
maybe
or so,
24 hours at the most.
And there was never any pain.
Yeah.
In fact, I didn't even know they were there because I was too busy with the front of me in the bathroom and going through my insanity. I didn't even look at the rest of my body. So I didn't even know they were there.
In all this tumult, were you able to capture any photographic evidence of this occurring? I know that that's not necessarily the first thought when somebody finds something odd on their body, but just out of curiosity, were you able to document any of this as it was happening?
Absolutely not.
No.
Okay.
Nor did we care. Thank you for asking that.
Of course.
I don't even
going
think we
through
had
insanity.
a camera or anything, or even
we have a
thought
person
about
missing.
it.
We have a person missing.
Yeah, and we have a friend missing.
Mm-hmm. And so with her missing, we are in pure panic. We're beyond panicked.
Mm-hmm.
And so I happen to be off work for the next couple of days. And also keep in mind, this was 1997, so there's no phone cameras.
Right, right.
It's a very different time as well. But in all honesty, I have to tell you, in reliving this, there's no doubt to me that'd be the last thing on our mind is about anything about. Now it's different now.
Oh yeah,
It's
if
everything's
it
different
happened,
now.
if it happened
Yeah.
tonight,
Been there and done that.
You'd have pictures in the next tomorrow.
But in the
Oh yeah, I don't blame you though.
in the experience, well, the fact is, what's interesting is I think I have the most amazing picture that exists, and it's called an X-ray of this object in my arm. And do you know, to this day, nobody seems to care. That has been the most distressing part
Yeah,
about this
because
whole
this
experience.
object is still in her arm.
Not only do I have that one in my upper arm, but I've had another experience with another object in the same arm. And I'm telling you again, nobody cares.
This picture of your X-ray is in the book, correct?
That's right.
All right, I'm just gonna flash this up real quick. Everybody can see. If you go out and again, for those of you who have joined us over the last hour here and did not catch the intro, we are talking to Chad and Alta Dillard about their experiences, and this is the book that they have written. And I'm holding it on an angle so we don't get that nice light flash there, called Orbducted in the French Quarter. And we're essentially going through this experience tonight. And of course, there's so much more detail to be investigated. So please go ahead and pick yourself up a copy of this book. It's absolutely fantastic. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much.
You're very welcome.
I've been told a lot of information packed in, a few pages. So for that, we're very grateful. So essentially, get myself back on track here. I'm off work for the next couple of days. Convenient. Some more of that synchronicity stuff. Chad and I are terrified. I'm speaking for him because we are both mortified. We have no answer. We have, is this going to happen again? What the hell is in my arm? What the hell? What the hell? Where is she? Where is Christine? So we go through this back and forth banter. You call Christine. No, I'm not calling Christine. No, you call her.
You call her. I'm not calling you.
Yeah, no. But we were just so scared. So neither one of us did. We just, as I tell folks, when you live in the French Quarter, it's like its own little community. They deliver food, groceries if you need it, and whatever. So we literally battened down the hatch. We closed all the curtains. We locked ourselves away for 2 days, and we were not surfacing. We were waiting, just wait. I don't remember sleeping. I don't remember anything. I don't remember eating. I just remember being in a pure state of panic about what had happened to us and where was she. So 2 days later, she still hasn't surfaced, and I have to go to work. And so I had a job. Chad, again, entrepreneur, he could kind of do his thing. I had a schedule. So I have to be there that morning. I walk in the shop, and who's there to greet me? Her. Right. So she looks at me puzzled. I want to just, scream. And I'm so happy she's her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, right. So essentially, the only thing that makes any sense to me, because I'm speaking for her and trying to give it all that I can, the only thing that makes sense is at the time she's 24 and I was 40. I'm pretty sure that was a moment of my understanding a huge age difference between us and how we might handle things. She saw it. She knows something insane happened to her. She knows it. She admits it, but she's not interested in pursuing it any further. That was enough for her. She just spent that couple of days processing while we're losing our minds. And
but she didn't reach out to you or anything during that time, right? She didn't make any effort to make sure you guys were okay as well?
Nope.
Right.
Okay.
But again, to me, the only thing that makes sense is, well, none of it does it? I mean, she saw a dude turn into a wolf right in front of her face. I mean, none of it makes any sense. So I just can't explain what we can't explain, just what we experience. So essentially, that was that experience in terms of that particular, what I have memory of, what we experienced. And then it just seems like life kind of got on with it. from that moment forward, still living in the quarter. But I will tell you, because I was changed eternally, and Chad as well, you can't have these experiences and not have something happen to you or change to me. That's my take on it. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
I became compelled to the point of insanity to get out of New Orleans and go back to the Southwest. That's a whole nother trilogy of books all in itself of what happened to us and that experience, if you will. So right,
As it
so
should be.
That was within a year or so we left New Orleans and then went on to have crazier experiences, or not, maybe not crazier, but certainly anomalous in every kind of fashion. We did return to New Orleans, and I bring this up for your benefit, Michael, knowing that you have a Montauk connection, if I might. So when this is happening to us, originally in 97, we had a friend that we had met back in 95, actually, when we first moved to New Orleans. His name is Rich. He happens to be from Montauk, born and raised.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy.
Oh, he was very
interesting.
And how old do you think he was at the time that you may have met him, out of curiosity?
30.
Okay.
Oh, I know, because I'm an inquisitive soul. And if you're a strange little character, if there's something unusual about you, I usually like to understand.
This guy was almost 7 foot tall,
without exaggeration, and
And-
very
Oh, wow.
thin, so
thin,
he even
very
looked
thin.
taller. He was an artist, like a traveling artist, and a handyman, and just did what he needed to do. So his name is Rich from Montauk. Okay, so we're friends, but every once in a while might run into each other or have a party and have a beer or whatever, but not real tight. But certainly knew
He was
him,
a
'cause
ley
again,
line kinda
he's
guy.
Montauk and he stands out
Okay, yep.
like a
Yep.
giant.
Very into ley lines.
Okay, so and he's very into ley lines. And so, okay, so back to the connection that I just think so bizarre. And then meeting you, Michael, or having this chance with you and knowing what little I do about your history. Okay, so Chad and I leave and then we return a few years later. We get back to New Orleans. We leave in about 98 and then we return by 2000. So we're gone a couple years, we're back. So in 2000, Chad and I, my word is we imploded. We came apart. Everything, I don't know, everything hit and we came apart. And so Chad decided to leave New Orleans. He's going to move to his family who live in small town Alabama. I chose to stay behind. So I'm still working in that shop and, trying to just get on with my life. What was interesting is that I started dying, truly dying inside. I thought we were okay about the separation, strangely enough, but no, I wasn't doing well at all. And I was maintaining myself by keeping my job, but everything else was falling apart. So I come out of work one day and it's a beautiful afternoon and it's daylight and the place is packed like it should be. And the streets, the whatever. And I hear somebody yelling my name, Alta. Well, me and my weird ass name, that got my attention. So I look up and who is it? All of a sudden I see that giant and it's Rich. And I hadn't seen him in a few years. So he'd been gone, we'd been gone. And so anyhow, he yells. So we, grab each other, have a hug, and he's like, let's have a drink. Okay. So we sit at a little outdoor cafe, like a little sidewalk restaurant. He orders a Coke. I ordered a beer. He's got a little box he's carrying around with him, but he's a little artiste. Never know what's in that little box. He sets the box down, he opens it up, and he starts rolling himself a cigarette. While he's rolling the cigarette, he's learning that Chad and Alta aren't together anymore. In the moment I share that with him, he is extremely upset. Like really shocked and upset because nobody could imagine Chad and Alta not being together.
Yeah.
In fact, we call ourselves Chowta. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is.
We didn't have a guy's night out or a girl's night out.
Yeah, we hung together.
We hung together.
Right. So as I'm expressing this to him and I'm feeling his true pain and sadness to hear this from me. All of a sudden, he don't feel sad for me no more, or Chad. It's like we didn't exist. The conversation shifted instantly. And he says, "Hey, have you heard about Will?" I'm like, Will? Will? What? Dark Boy? I called Will Dark Boy. Dark Boy? What? What are you talking about? I didn't even know you knew him. Well, not so strange. All the artists knew everybody, kind of whatever. But of all the names that he would bring up to me was Will. So I'm like, no, nope, haven't heard about that one. And he's like, yeah, he's gone around telling everybody he's catching a bus. He's got to catch a bus and get out of town because the aliens are after him.
Oh, boy.
And
if you didn't understand the backstory, right? Yeah.
Right. As soon as he did that, as soon as he said that, he had to go. He packs up his little cigarette box. He stands up. He's like, I got to go. I'm like, what? Now I'm in shock. I think we hugged goodbye. I don't even remember, because what I do remember is that I got pissed. I got really, really, really pissed. And I started looking around, like, and I've said this before, I was looking for cameras. I felt like I'd been punked. I felt like I was on some Candid Camera show. And this was too much. The joke was all on me, because I couldn't believe what I had just been through with this Montauk boy and this craziness. And now he's talking about Wolfie Boy has got to get out of town because of the aliens, a word I don't even use. And it was like, oh, and then he got gone and just left me in that. Well, Chad and I reunited not long after that. Hallelujah. And, life got on even stranger. But
well, sometimes when something like that happens, when you have two individuals who seem to be fated to be with each other, there oftentimes, I've noticed, there is an initial trial, or at least an initial meeting. My parents actually went through something like that, wherein my father saw my mother in a restaurant. She was a waitress there. He said, well, I that's the girl. I've got to get her, and so he did everything he could in his effort.
Aww.
Yeah, and they hung out for a couple times, and then she kind of said, you know what, no, I'm going to go with somebody else. And a year passed between them, and they had a chance meeting once again. And guess what? The story is written after that. Here I am. So, I find that some of these deeper paths, a lot of times when that happens, it might be representative of still integrating the energy of that initial meeting. Okay. And then perhaps life in some ways testing your strength and your individuality, because life knows what's coming next with this opportunity that's being presented to you. It's a matter of you saying, well, that's the path that I want to take. Perhaps that's the path to my higher vision with this person, or, maybe they are too scared to go down that path for various reasons that may or may not be explained. But, this story is really fascinating. And unfortunately, we're getting close to the end of the show here. We're close on the bottom of the hour. And I did want to hear a little bit about Chad's experience. And I know that that's a lot more comprehensive than, the next 5 minutes. So why don't we do this? Okay. I very much enjoyed my time with you, and I hope that you have felt the same. I'd like to have you back on again, and maybe we can do some Q&A in regards to the story, because now we've laid down the foundation, which is very excellent. And well, that's not the word I'm thinking. It's an incredible story and foundation for people to understand. And I'm sure that there are many questions folks would like answered in the best way that you can, of course. What do you guys say to that? How does that strike you?
Hey, we love, sharing our experiences. We love to put this out because there's some people out there that have had experiences that don't feel comfortable expressing, like we do. So, it's always nice to be out there. We've put ourselves out there so for so many years, we just want to be there for other people. And like I said, we love, sharing our experience.
So the short answer would be yes.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Because usually it takes Alta a year to answer something. So you can tell Chad and Alta have been together a long time. Yeah,
I honestly,
awesome.
I almost feel like I'm speaking not to the same person, but to one entity. And that's something I've kind of picked up as I've been listening to you guys go back and forth. You're sharing one story, but it's split between the both of you. It's really incredible, the relationship and the connection that you have. And if I could say, admirable, to say the very least. Because listen, I mean, not only... You're very welcome. And not only is that something commendable in this life, but to me, when I see two people come together like this and have such an intense connection, even in the way of experience, to me, that's indicative of many other attempts or, times you've been together building this relationship, maybe switching roles, maybe, having a whole different dynamic, but nonetheless, the energy still stays with you both as well as the experience. And there is a love that is something that cannot be truncated in any way, shape, or form that I can feel between you. And again, this is right here, just my own intuition and what I'm feeling from you as I've talked to you, not only tonight, but in our own personal conversations. It's just really magical. And I'm really grateful that you guys decided to speak out and really push in the way of helping people, because, we all have the decision to do what we want to with the information that we have. And I'm finding a lot of folks really deciding and coming to a point where they're saying, well, I think what I have informational wise or experientially could really help somebody else. And, we go through the effort to do that. So thank you for the mission that you're on, whether you realize that it's one or not, and the healing that you are leaving in your wake for so many others who are too, or let me say, they're at the point in their development where fear is still sort of overriding their experience and their communication and expression. So thank you guys for being you. And I would love to have you back on the show to do a question and answer segment where we can just really get into the nitty gritty of some of these experiences that you've had.
That's just awesome. We never get asked enough questions. So we so look forward to it, Michael. And so well said. Thank you so much for the compliment and being who you are and giving us a platform to have an opportunity to speak. And we just look forward to the future. And we wish you the absolute best. We'll make sure that the world knows you exist the best that we can express it. So.
And might I say likewise to you. Thank you for everything as well. And we'll definitely have you back on the show. We'll talk off camera about it. That being said, if you have a moment just to hang around, I'll say my proper goodbyes off the show. If you have to go, I understand that, and we can get in touch another way. But either way, I'm going to bring you off for just a moment. All right?
Awesome.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you very much. I really appreciate Chad and Alta Dillard coming on tonight to share this experience. Now, this interview was a little bit different because it's very rare that you have such a concrete story, okay, in the way that they tell it and describe their experiences. Yes, there's plenty of room to inject these questions, but sometimes I feel that it's more important for you as the listener and for myself to really understand the core foundation of what's being conveyed before we start asking, more in-depth questions that may lead to an entire, block of time in respect to an entire show. So what I'll do, as I mentioned just a few moments ago with Chad and Alta, we'll do a follow-up show very soon wherein I'll just present a lot of the questions that I had reading through the book, which once again, I'll show you guys. It's Orbducted in the French Quarter. Go and check this out. Pick it up. It's a fantastic read. I very highly recommend it. It's an easy read, too. It's something that you'll sit down on an afternoon on Sunday with a nice cup of herbal tea or whatever the hell it is you drink. And you'll get through this because by the time you get through the first couple pages, you're not going to put it down. All right. And that's indicative of a very good read and very well put together. So thank you very much, Chad and Alta, for being here on the show tonight. And thank you, of course, for sending me this fantastic book that you guys have written, not only for the priming of the show, but to really understand where you guys come from and for my own interest. Oh, Magic Mutts. What's up, pal? Thank you very much for the super chat there. CA $5, Canada $5. All right. I didn't think California had its own currency. Thank you very much, mate. I really appreciate that. And for all those who have super chatted and my moderators tonight, I want to thank you for being here as well. Let's see. I'm on Goof On with Richie G in about a half an hour here. We're going to be going over magic as the illusion and how that relates to the paranormal and why it's something we should look at all. So that's going to be a fantastic show. Please go and check him out. It's 10 o'clock Eastern time. 7 o'clock Pacific, I believe, and we'll be on in just a half hour. And for those of you who don't know, which I don't think it's many of you seeing all of those in my chat tonight, although there are a couple new people. Welcome. Countdown to Disclosure has been released on February 16th. Third Phase of Moon has put this out. Amazon Prime, Vimeo, Google Movies. You can find this across about 15 different platforms. And guess what? It's number 3. We're at the number 3 slot for movies right now on these platforms. It's really fantastic. And I appreciate all of you guys being here with me tonight. Go and check that out. Also check out Third Phase, our sister channel, where we're reviewing and analyzing some of these older or sightings of the past and having a great time doing that. Just an entertaining party-like setting. Everybody has a great time in that channel. So please go and visit as well. Again, Conflict Radio, check them out. He provided me with the bio today, does fantastic work in the way of interviews and has some really interesting guests. Again, he was the first to actually interview Chad and Alta a little bit earlier this week, so go and check him out. All right, guys, thank you very much for being with us once again, and we will see you on Monday with a much anticipated third return of Jared Murphy. And I talked to him over past couple days, and I'm going to be honest, it's going to be an incredible show. If you guys have liked the other 2 that we put together, this one's going to be right there with it, if not better. So that's my thought on that, and I hope to see you all there. In the meantime, stay inquisitive, stay sharp, and stay out of the cold. We're working on that third one still. We're still working on it. You know, if I sat down for 5 minutes, when I get 5 minutes, ooh, Missy, thank you for the $5 super chat. I really appreciate you. Kim Brower got a $5 super sticker. I can't go until I acknowledge these. This is fantastic, and I really appreciate all of this because, again, everything that you guys donate to me goes right into the show. If you're not comfortable doing the super chat or the super stickers, there is a link to the PayPal in the description. And again, I thank every single one of you who have kept me afloat in many difficult times over the past month. I'd say that I've been monetized. You guys really did make a difference in what I'm doing here and where we're going. I mean, I'm going to Hawaii this year, and that's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I'll leave the rest up to anticipation. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here because I have to get ready for Goof On. So I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your evening. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next time on Dark Hour Paranormal. See ya.